Welcome to Spread the Word! It's March, and
in March, we
wear black.
Good Lord.
That was a vibe.
That was like
that is the vibe of your shirt right there.
Okay, anyway.
Okay, so for March, I read The Tobacco Wives by Adele Myers. I did not know this going into it, but it has very much to do with pregnancy. And so you know I like to be thematic.
Mm-hmm.
So I got pregnant for this book.
That's dedication.
I was really drawn to this book because it takes place in North Carolina, and I'm from North Carolina. Right after, I was about to say the Civil War. It's not the Civil War. It is World War II. Which is a period of time I actually really, really like reading historical fiction about, and you don't...
The period just after?
Just after.
Yeah.
Like, the troops are still in Europe,
yeah,
but the war is over, so like, you've got, it's like this weird transitional time where like rations are not quite a thing, but also like there's nothing, like no industry has, besides war industry, has like really returned. Our main character, Maddie Sykes, she is 15, and we open the novel with her mother dropping her off at her aunt's house. Maddie's left, and she's staying with her aunt, who is a seamstress in the town, and she's like the best seamstress. She makes all of the like gala dresses for what she calls the Tobacco Wives, and these are all the wives of the tobacco executives and people associated with the tobacco industry in this town in North Carolina. Very early on in the book, Maddie's aunt falls ill, so Maddie basically takes over her aunt's business, and she spent summers with her aunt, and so she also is a very skilled seamstress. But one of the tobacco wives, like the top wife, she takes Maddie in and like actually literally has her live at her house with her to make the clothes and like just to not be alone. She's only 15, like no one else, her aunt lives alone. I didn't think it was appropriate for her to be alone, but she's like, yeah, 15, like you feel grown, but like, should you? No. This woman apparently collects semi-adult children, because she's like the godmother to this boy who calls her Mimi.
We're both making the same face.
Yeah. It seems weird, and Maddie thinks it's weird too. She's like, lady, I don't know you.
Yeah.
You're like buying me clothes.
Grooming people.
Oh, yeah. It felt like that for a while, and Maddie definitely like gets vibes like that and mentions it, but then that's not at all what it is. Yeah. In fact, this woman like has dealt with substantial loss of children. She's had like multiple miscarriages, and she lost a baby. What is uncovered by Maddie in this book is that cigarette smoking is really bad if you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, in 1945,
right,
kind of shocking.
Yeah.
This is an era when they're still like recommending people smoke to calm their nerves.
Right.
This company, Brightleaf, the tobacco company in town, is coming out with a new cigarette targeted to women. It's the first cigarette targeted to women. And they even have doctors who are like prescribing cigarettes for calming nerves, and especially these cigarettes for calming nerves because they're for women's delicate dispositions, constitutions. So Maddie uncovers this because she stumbles upon some sensitive information between executives and doctors employed by Brightleaf, and so she wants to out this, but for a host of reasons she's struggling to get the truth out. There's blackmail involved, like she's being blackmailed, and it's very tense. And then there also is like a little love story with her and the local boy. I haven't read a ton of more contemporary historical fiction recently, so I guess I was kind of like out of practice with it. But I'd say like by a third of the way in, I was really hooked, and like I really loved the characters, and the story was really interesting. Like just learning about how people decided cigarettes were bad, and like how long of a journey it actually was. Yeah. Like they knew.
I think like now that we think that everyone is like, it's obviously bad, there's so many studies, but like forgetting how you got there. Like the history of medicine is full of stuff like that.
And how really much like industries actively pushed it away, and like they actively knew
what the harm it caused, but but the profits were too good. Okay, so I'm really excited about this book. I have held myself back from talking to you guys about it so I can bring it all out on the table tonight. So I read The Dark Queens. It is history. This shit happened, you guys. I was enthralled. It takes place in late 500s, early 600s France, which is right after, it's sort of this time period from after the Roman fall, but before Charlemagne. The Merovingians.
It is very different.
Merovingians? Anyway, they are the dynasty before Charlemagne. Clovis was the first king of France that bring all of the tribes together, but then he did a dumb thing, which was give all of the lands to his sons. So instead of having like one heir, it was like all of the lands were divided between all of the sons. And then that, of course, led to like this bloodbath situation. The time period described in the book is this like war of secession, but all these brothers like competing, and they owned a certain amount of France. But the really more interesting part is the two dark queens, Brunhild and Fredegund. So Brunhild, she was a Visigoth princess who marries into the Moringians. What, I don't know, man. How are you say their names? Yeah. And she marries one of the sons, and he seems like a goodish dude. Fredegund is married to like the youngest son. He kind of got like shunted with the land situation because he tried right after the father died to get everything. So then once the brothers got it under control, they're like, damn, man, you get this small little bit. But she's not even his original wife. He had one wife who didn't make a baby boy, and then he got rid of her. I think he sent her to a nunnery or something, and then he married another woman. She also didn't. Meanwhile, she took Fredegund, who was a slave girl from like the kitchens or something, and made her like her lady in waiting, and then she ended up seducing the king or something. So she becomes queen from being a slave, and it is nuts, and she is ruthless, and it is awesome. So her husband and Brunhild's husband are at a certain point like fighting against each other. The two queens are, for the whole book and for like the whole, I don't know, I can't remember how many decades, it's at least a decade that they're basically fighting. Both of them outlive their husbands, and they are still like queen regents, which is very like weird, like unheard of for the time. Because again, it's late 500s, early 600s France, and they are still like plotting against each other. Shelley Puhak is the author. Like, she read a lot of first source material. There's not much from that time because it's like a long time ago. So much was lost. But there were a few first source, like one priest guy, Gregory. He wrote a lot of very sassy letters about what was happening, which is fascinating in itself. Of like just thinking about how she pieced together the story from like the available material. Yeah, and just like the idea of the two queens and like their motivations. She does a really good job, I think, of like stepping into how they would have felt, because there's no writing from them, though they both were educated and could have written, I think, but nothing was saved, because when after their deaths, they were like really written off. Like, I mean, literally the men at the time were like, let's not remember these two queens who ruled for like a long time. A very good comp from like contemporary culture is Cersei from Game of Thrones. She's like very much like a Fredegund character, but a little bit Brunhild sometimes too. I mean, she wasn't exactly a nice person either. But I am like, actually, it was worse than Game of Thrones. Like, I like how things ended, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I don't know. Fredegund was thought to be responsible for something like 9 assassinations.
Whoa, girl.
Yeah. God. Spoiler alert. Actually, it's pretty early on. I mean, she was a slave and she became a queen. I mean, I don't know.
No glass ceiling for her.
I know. You know, I just feel like you can like see who this person was, where she was like, I had nothing, and and once I have something, I'll do nothing to like,
I'll do everything to
keep what I have, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, I just feel like even if you're not a huge history reader, I think like it has a lot of going on. It's very action filled. I highly recommend.
Okay, so I read all the white spaces. I was going through a slump, and often when I'm going through a slump, I need to find something that's really mean to its characters. So it starts off with Josephine, and she and her mother just got news that her two brothers, Francis and Rufus, were killed in World War I. And there's sort of this like feeling in the first scene where you understand that maybe her mother would have preferred that Josephine be gone and not her two brothers. And you realize it's because Josephine identifies as a boy. Josephine's like teens, like I want to say like 16 or 17. So she realizes this has happened. One of the things that Rufus and Francis always talked about was like when we get back from the war, we're going to go on this Antarctic expedition, because at that time it was uncharted, and there was this famous explorer who was about to go and try to chart the Antarctic. So her brothers had like the map up on their wall, and you know, she was like, oh, I wish I could go, you know, I wish I could wear pants, I wish I could do all the things that my brothers are doing, I wish I could go to war. But she couldn't do any of those things. So she decides when they die that she's going to do that, and she's going to officially identify as a man. And it's kind of the perfect situation because, you know, she's going to be on a crew of men who are going to look at her and think, oh, it's just a young boy. So their best friend Harry, who was the one who went to war with them and comes back and tells them the news that they're dead, he goes on the ship with her and helps her run away. And so Josephine becomes Jonathan. So from now on, I will be referring to him as Jonathan. Harry and Jonathan go on this expedition. Jonathan is sort of like a stowaway. And of course, something happens and Jonathan is given away. And Harry and Jonathan are like threatened that they're gonna like throw them overboard because they're an extra mouth to feed if something happens. And Jonathan's like, I'm gonna have to pull my weight because I'm the spare. So when things start to go downhill, I'm the first one that's gonna get eaten. He definitely establishes himself on the crew as somebody who is integral to the crew. When you're like sailing through the Antarctic, one of the things is you need to make it to land, actual land, before the pack.
The ice comes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before the ice comes in.
Because then you're stuck.
Yeah. But things keep going wrong. Fights are breaking out. Or Jonathan starts to see his brothers.
So hallucinating,
yeah. Or
it's cursed.
Or not. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is it cursed? Is this witchcraft?
They also, because, you know, once they reach land, they're going to need sled dogs. So they have like packs of dogs on the ship.
Oh no.
Yeah.
The dogs make it, right?
So the dogs are responding to something. They're like a mess all the time and they can't figure out what it is. But it seems to be something is tormenting them.
Spirit.
Yeah. Harry's like staying up all night and sleeping on deck with the dogs, and he seems to be losing his shit a little bit. Yeah, and Jonathan's getting a little like frustrated with Harry. He's like, snap out of it, you need to get your shit together.
Yeah.
And Harry's just like, ah. And also there's this thing where he seems to have feelings for Jonathan, but you don't know if he has feelings for Jonathan as Josephine or as Jonathan. It's not like a love story. Right. There's like this element of that. It kind of adds more sadness and torture to the story. It's clear that there's something going on within the crew that's sabotaging them, and there's something going on without that's sabotaging them. And I won't tell you if this happens or not, but what I was always afraid of is Jonathan being revealed as a woman and then
like them blaming on it
or something.
Yes, in a crew of men who haven't seen a woman in you know, months. So you kind of have that like hovering over you. Yeah. You're just kind of like, oh God, when is that going to happen? The journey is very treacherous, just with nature. And then you add this supernatural element, and it is a supernatural element. It's pretty terrifying. I mean, it's a horror for sure. Anyway, yeah, I loved it. Well, thanks for tuning in to March's Spread the Word.
And here's Olivia to tell you, read the books.
Read the books!
Read the books!